Hello and welcome to Dream, Declare, Deliver. My name's Chris Gorell, and I'm here with Candace Sogren, my buddy, partner, and co-author of Typhoon Honey, The Only Way Out is Through. We've been talking a lot about the whole process of Dream, Declare, Deliver, and we've talked in the past sessions about dreaming. We want to take on the declaration part today, and it's really one of the most curious and fascinating parts of life by design and living life in reality that I can think of. It really is an art of preparing yourself to receive what it is that you're actually declaring for yourself. And there's so many parts of it that we can unpack, and we're going to try to do that in a pretty condensed form today. So where do you think we should start?
I mean, I think, when the two of us were together last, we were talking about dreaming, and dreaming is so fun. If you can actually get to a point where you give yourself permission to dream, whether it's taking yourself through a perfect day meditation or going for a nice walk in nature, and just deciding like, I can create anything from this blank canvas. There's so much power in dreaming, but often I look at dreaming as like a menu that's got just a million things on it. So how do you pick your meal when you have a menu with a million tasty items on it? You do that through declaring. Declaring is actually saying, this is what I want. Of all the menu that's available to me, all the possibilities that are out there, this is the path I want to take. This is what I want to do next. Mm-hmm. And I think, the first thing I'll say is dreams by themselves are just nice ideas. Like you can have lots of dreams. I was just with some friends this morning they do nothing but dream. They're dreamers, and I love them. I love them dearly, but they still don't have enough money to pay their mortgage. Their car is broken down and they can't get it out of the shop. And so like the dreamers in life, if they don't learn the art of declaration, won't actually see anything come to fruition. And so Today we're going to start talking about like the practice of making things reality.
Right.
I think that you said something important, Chris, and I think this is maybe the first thread for us to pull on is preparing. So you said like the declaration is preparing yourself to take on whatever's next. I would say you want to make sure you prepare yourself to declare. So I've been dreaming about a million things, a trip to Australia, a summer in California, adoption. Like I've been dreaming about a million different things, a million different paths that Andrew and I could take. And we are just to the point now of making a declaration. We just made one and now we're like, oh crap. Are we ready? Are we really ready to take this path?
Right.
So how do you prepare yourself to declare? Like, how do you make sure you're ready to declare? Because I'll say the universe is, if you continue to spend time with Chris and me on the show, if you continue to take this work on reading the book and taking on these courses, you're going to start getting really close with the universe. And when you declare, the universe is going to deliver. And so, Chris, how do you prepare yourself to make sure like this is actually the path I want to take? This is the declaration I want to make.
Well, that's really, I mean, there are so many parts of it, I always look at declaration. You were talking about there's so many different paths that, the menu that you have in front of you. I can see myself in each one of those things. So many people that we work with, get to a life choice point and they see only the one path that's the direct extension of the line that they've been traveling. They don't see each point in time as a choice point. The part about preparation is I actually have to see myself in that future vision. And for me, it's like trying on a suit coat. Go to the store. I know I'm a 44 long, but, some aren't cut right because I have a very athletic cut, and so they're too square and some are too tight because they're too athletic and I still have a little bit of an old man tummy. So I have to try on all of the different makers to find the one that's right for me. It's the same way with, preparing to declare. I actually have to try on some of those futures. Like really mentally try them on and say, can I see myself doing that? Like you and Andrew talking about adoption, it's a neat concept. It's a loving concept. It's a wonderful thing to talk about. But, then you sit down and you hold hands and you go like, oh my gosh, can we actually see ourselves with, another child and another one after that or whatever? Can we see something like that? Now, that's only half of it, because the other half you also mentioned, and that is we think and work in tune with the entire universe, with everything around us, with the forces of nature, whatever you want to call them, the things that are around us, we call them abundant. And so when we prepare ourselves, when I prepare myself to look at a future vision, I have a very small mind compared to the universe's consciousness. And I might create a small version of that, but when the universe responds to my declaration, watch out, because sometimes you get what you ask for.
So before we get to the universe responding, because I think that's the next thread for us to pull on,
Right.
One of the things that I do to prepare, and this is something that a coach of mine, Laura Hackle, taught me about a year or two ago. And she taught me the power of having energetic conversations. And having an energetic conversation essentially means, like you had said, trying on the suit before you actually buy it. So essentially, like if you're like, okay, should I get divorced or stay married? Like that might be one. Should I quit my job or stay in it or look for another job? Should we move to another town? Like, if you're thinking about different paths that you could take, having an energetic conversation. So like literally she said, pick up the phone and hold your hand to your ear and say, okay, I'm going to have a conversation with the person who I'm going to do this with. So like with Andrew. So Andrew, we're going to move to California. And you talk through all the things that you think will come up in that conversation, all of his objections, all of the fears that come up for me. You have the whole conversation, then you say click. And what that does is it prepares me to have that potential path available to me. It also prepares him energetically to be open to that conversation.
Right.
The reason I say this is that, I've been doing this a lot lately with the question of adoption. Andrew and I started this path. We declared that we wanted to have another child. We actually had a second child that only survived for 4 days. And we were like, this is something we really want for our family. So much so that we went down the path of adoption. We found an agency. We went through a whole home study. Like we were approved in September. And it was that moment that we were like, okay, like that whole thing was like an energetic conversation. It was like practicing for like, okay, is this something we really want? And every time the social worker would say, is this something you still want?
Are you ready?
You still want?
Right.
Is this something you still want? So it's a way to pick up the phone and like actually check in with yourself. Is this still something I want? And I would invite you to check in with yourself often as you're going through the declaration process to make sure that that's the path you want to take.
Sarah and I did a very similar sort of thing when we first got married. We, hadn't really talked about children. We were both grown adults. I had been married before and had two daughters, and so we were just toying with, well, should we have kids or not? And so what we decided to do was tell everybody we're thinking of having a child. And for a month, just wear that suit, for a month, just go around and be in the conversation with everybody as if we were going to have a child. The funny thing is we decided at the end of the month, nah, we don't, I got my 2 kids, we're both professionals, we're fine. And so we decided not to have a child. In the very next month, she was pregnant.
And so I think that's
grown up now.
That's what you were talking about is, okay, so be prepared. Because when you make a declaration, you're going to see what you asked for coming at you potentially at 100 miles an hour, and potentially in a much different form than you were expecting.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's coming up for me is understanding the difference between declaring and controlling. I'm
Ooh,
I'm a
yeah.
controlling person by nature.
Yeah, I'll join that bandwagon too.
Yeah, I get stuff done, man. And like people can count on me. They like, oh, we know Candace will get it done. That's because I'm very controlling. I tend to want to control the beginning, the middle, and the end of every story. And unfortunately, declaration doesn't work that way.
Right.
And you can declare, and then you gotta hold on tight, because it's not going to look the way that you want it to look necessarily. Now, it will be exactly what you asked for. But it may not look the way you wanted it to look.
Yeah, and I think that's the part we get to let go of, is not so much, well, it might be the control issue, but it's the conceptualization. The way I think of it is I'm just a small, peanut. I'm just like I have a mental capacity as a human being. The universe has a much greater capacity. And so its ability to, if I can anthropomorphize the universe, or God, or whatever we want to call it, but that force has the ability to provide in ways that I never even conceptualized. But it's providing kind of the answer to my declaration, the corresponding part of my declaration. And what we're talking about in terms of being prepared is part of the preparation is, getting your mindset in that energetic conversation, that phone call to the future or whatever, or wearing it around for a month and trying it out. But part of it is be prepared also to let go of how I think it should be. And just know that having made the declaration, I now can receive what's coming at me, and my eyes are open. And I think part of making the declaration opens us up to see more options and see more things coming at us than we normally would if we're sitting in our regular straight line trajectory from the past to the future.
Yeah, two things are coming up for me as you're saying that. The first of those is how Andrew and I met. So, we met at this retreat called Intimacy Fest, which is just by its name interesting and a little bit creepy. But and I remember, like, we were at this kind of workshop, and I journaled before I met him. How is this so easy for everyone else to be fully expressed and fully themselves and still embraced by another person? And Andrew said that he went into the retreat saying, I want to be shaken up. I was living my life as a balled up fist and I wanted to be shaken up. And then boom, we meet. And he got shaken up, and I met someone who embraced me for my full expression. And what Andrew, to this day, 8 years later, he'll say, I was the dog that caught the car. Like, I was like, oh crap, I wanted to be shaken up, and now I've got a whole life of being shaken up. And he said, I had to, like, I didn't know, I didn't think I was ready for that, because I said I wanted this. And then when I got it, I didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
So that's one story that came up for me. Anything else that came up for you? And then I'll go into my second.
Oh, I think it's almost identical, in terms of, I had marriage before, and I was the caretaker, and I just it wasn't fulfilling, and it drained me, and like to the point where people didn't recognize me. And so having gotten divorced and, kind of meditating on what I wanted for the future, I said, I want an equal. I want somebody who's as strong, as powerful, as outgoing as me. I need to be met on the playing field as, 1-to-1, not pulling somebody along with me. And Hal gets smacked in the face with this powerful woman, a New York City kid who, cut her teeth on, as a production manager in the fashion industry, in the newspaper industry of the fashion industry, which is like probably the toughest dog eat dog world. So talk about, real powerful person, and boy, be careful what you ask for, because you just might get it. It's kind of the lesson. What's the other story you were thinking of?
So this is one that involves both of us, and it's relevant right now to us, and this is why we wanted to bring this topic up. we find ourselves in a really uncomfortable situation right now. And we won't speak to the details, but it's a really tough situation that involves some children who need support. And Chris and I have been inextricably tied together through this experience. And I'm finding myself right now in a moment where I could potentially be adopting several children out of a very impossible situation. It's really scary. It's really scary. And Andrew and I have had conversations about it every single day for the past month. And then, as we're having conversations with our attorney and others, like, we just were approved by a home study in September for an adoption. And like, we've been preparing our home for multiple children, it's one of those things that it's not, I would never in a million years ask for what is happening exactly as it's happening in our lives right now. Yet we made a declaration in September. Mm-hmm. And I do sincerely feel like this is a much bigger situation than I can control. I can't control this one.
No.
And so I'm feeling the power of declaration right now. And I'm working through how to prepare myself to be ready for whatever the universe, returns in response.
Yeah. The other side of that same story is, and I have to laugh about this part, is the week before that incident happened, I released the manuscript to my next book called Learning to Feel. And it's a journey of self-discovery of how, as a psychologist and as adult male and things like that, I had learned to suppress a lot of my own emotions. So how do I get that released? How do I take off those things that stop me from feeling and really deeply experience the experience of emotions? And so it, writing it took me there, and then kapow, right on the heels of that, I have all the opportunity that I can handle to feel emotions that I've never even had words for before. And part of learning to feel is being able to name your emotions and then embrace them. So it's just so interesting that my declaration of I'm now a feeling person. I'm not just a head strapped on a body, but I'm actually a whole integrated person that lives and feels through life appropriately and can respond to other people. And I got it in spades. So
interesting, Chris, because you're an author, and so you were telling me before that it's funny how you write a book and then you watch it happen in your life. You live it.
It's a little scary.
Well, and having written a book with you now, like, I remember as we were writing it, we were living it. As we were writing it, we were in the middle of COVID. You were fighting cancer. I had a death of a child. Like, all of this was happening while we were writing the book. Yeah. And so the power of the only way out is through. But then the moment we kick up this podcast, we're handed probably one of the most difficult situations I've ever experienced in my adult life.
Me too. Yeah.
We could both bury our heads or turn our backs and no one would even know. But
or think anything worse of us for doing
judge
that.
us for it.
Yeah, right. Or judge us.
And instead, we're holding hands and we're walking right into the storm. And I think if you're listening to this, this may feel a little nebulous. Yeah. But what I would say is, whatever, like, be certain on what you're declaring. Like, what is it that you want? What do you want? Mm-hmm. What do you want? What do you want? Get clear on what you want. Yeah. And then recognize, as soon as you declare it, a couple things are going to happen. Like, we talked about considerations with dreaming. The considerations of dreaming is you don't have the right to dream. You can't dream. How dare you dream? Mm-hmm. Those are the considerations there. But when you get to declaring, when you declare something, I will be the chief revenue officer of my company. That was a declaration I made on January 1st. Or, or we will adopt, whatever that might be. Considerations pop up again.
Yeah.
Considerations are always happening. And it may be that my mother-in-law was not supportive and told me you're selfish. That came up. That was a consideration. You're too selfish to have another child. It also may be that I tell myself I'm too selfish to have another child.
So
And
what you're saying is considerations can either be inside you or outside you, because a lot of times when you make a declaration, people around you, your support group say, whoa, 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 yeah, nice idea, Chris, but back off. That's not going to happen in your lifetime. Or you have the same internal dialogue that says, you're just being selfish. Like that's not reality. Or one of the little tapes in my head is that's not reality. And so those considerations hit us from both sides, and so we have to prepare, I guess, for that too.
Yeah. And I think too, the way if it was a declaration or just a nice idea, is it will keep coming back up again.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like if you truly declared with intention, this is something I want in my life, it will keep presenting itself over and over and over again until you take it. And so like this is something that, like, for instance, that this family option for us, like it's something that continues to present itself in very strange ways. Like the moment that we went live with our adoption, we got a phone call from our social worker, and she said, there's a person named Candace who is about to have a child. What are the odds, right?
You're right.
She's addicted to meth, and like the child will likely be addicted as well. And Andrew and I said, oh God, like, what do we do? And we were faced with it immediately, like as soon as we declared. Ultimately, that didn't end up working out because of the mom, but still, it was like, okay. And then I said, okay, well, I don't know if I want to do this. I want to back up.
Yeah.
And then another opportunity came forward, and then another one, and then another one. And so it's like the universe is telling me, Candace, you declared this. You declared this with intention. You've declared this when you were very clear in your heart of what you wanted for your life. I'm going to deliver. Be ready.
Yeah, and what's occurring to me as we're having this conversation is it may sound, as you're listening to us, it may sound pretty extravagant and heavy duty. And it's not always that way. Sometimes, you declare something and a trophy is handed to you on a silver platter. And it can be just as delightful as it is, as it can be scary in terms of the intensity or the magnitude of the response that shows up in front of you or keeps presenting itself to you. And it's almost like, universe or the powers that be, will keep presenting it in different ways until you accept what you said you're going to do and what you declared.
There was, I know I've mentioned Malcolm Gladwell a few times, but like he talks about stacking, and stacking is essentially like you create a lesson for yourself over and over and over again until you learn it.
Until you learn it, right?
Yeah. And so I guess what we would recommend today, if you're listening, is to start small. So just think about something that's something that you will create for yourself today. Yeah. And instead of saying I wish, say I will. That's it. Start small. Instead of saying I'd like, say I am. And it's a small change in vocabulary shifts it from being outside of your control and a nice idea to a declaration and something that you're committed to.
And the difference is the action that's attached to that. When you say I want or I wish, it's external. It's still out there. It's not part of me. Gee, I wish I had $1 million. Gee, I wish I had a Ferrari. Gee, like I want this status job or whatever. And when you say I will or I am, it comes inside as your personal declaration, and that in itself shifts the energy dynamic. To one of much more certainty and much more real, if you will, than the wish. We can all wish all day long, and not much is going to happen about that. As you said about your dreamer friends, wishes are dreams that just have no action to them. But when we declare, I am the chief revenue officer for this, not I want to be, but I am, then you start acting like it, you start sounding like it. And pretty soon people go like, yeah, she is, she's the rainmaker here. And, so we start shaping ourselves to that declaration as well. So that prepares us more by our declaration, by the language that we use. And you and I often say, be careful how you say things, because words are energy put into motion.
Yeah.
So when you declare something, you're actually starting the ball rolling.
So I have a couple of pieces of homework for those of you who are listening. One of them is I just gave this to my employees this week, so it's fresh in my mind, and that is a letter of accomplishment. And a letter of accomplishment, there's a book called The Art of Possibility, and in The Art of Possibility, they talk about giving yourself the A. So before you ever take the course, give yourself the A, and what that means is. And what I'd invite you to do today is to write a letter to yourself from yourself. And that letter is from 1 year from today. So it's whatever, 2023, January 2023, February 2023. Make it February 2024 and date it. It's February, whatever, 2024. And then say, dear whomever, and just say, you did it. You start off with, you did it.
Yeah.
And then you share, what did you do? You took that trip to Australia. You lived in California for a summer. You adopted that child. You have a 10 marriage now, and it feels amazing. Whatever it is, and then sign it yourself. This is a practice and declaration. It's also practice and dreaming.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that Chris and I often offer as homework to our students. And I think it's a great way to start putting into words what you actually truly want. And then check in with yourself every month or so. Go back to that letter and start to X out or cross out when you've accomplished those things.
Mm-hmm.
And what's cool is that by the end of the year, it'll all be marked off. It'll all be checked in. You will have accomplished it.
Yeah. I often coach my clients on doing a similar kind of thing, creating a powerful context for their work such that, even for a meeting, such that you don't even need the agenda for the meeting. If you're holding the context of that meeting, what are we here to do? What are the accomplishments that if this is a good meeting, we will have accomplished this, this, and this. And so that rolls up into, my focused being in that meeting is to create those results and those results alone. And that gives me a sense of a context for it. And what I love doing with the exec is going through that process with them. And then the next call we have, I said, pull out the sheet that you said what your desired results were, and did you get that? Did you get that? And literally they go down the list and say, oh my God, I did every one of those things without an agenda because I stayed on purpose. I stayed on context. So writing the letter of accomplishment is the same sort of thing. It's shaping your vision, shaping your context for the future, and allowing yourself to just start walking down that path. It's like, my dad and my grandfather were both carpenters, and you know what a chalk line is? It's a thing, a piece of cord that's in a box that's full of ground up chalk. And so you put it across the board and then you snap it and it makes a straight line. And so you can cut along the straight line and you never, it doesn't look all wobbly and everything. Having a context, having a letter of accomplishment, having a declaration is snapping the line down the center of the board. And it makes it so much easier to follow the path.
Mm-hmm. And if you today are saying, okay, Candace, I'm not ready to do that yet. I'm still taking baby steps here. Where I'd close is with this. Start off with who you are. So like, what are the values that hold you steady every day? And like, I am an honest, open, loving leader and mother. I'm very clear on who I am. And that is my declaration every morning when I wake up. I'm an honest, open, loving leader and mother. And then when I have these considerations we've been talking about coming up to me, I say, okay, before I respond, I'm just going to say, I am. And then I'll know where to go.
Yeah.
And so I invite you just to say, who are you at your core? Pick a word or two.
Yeah.
And start there. And that is the most powerful declaration you can make each day.
Yeah, it is. The two words I am are the most powerful two words in English, in any language. It's a statement of being. It's a pure statement of being. I am this. I am a powerful, passionate, unstoppable leader. And I ground myself in that same sort of I am statement. But just so you know how powerful it is, go read the big book, the Bible, whatever version you want, and it says at the very beginning, there's this nice little story about a guy who said, yeah, how do I know that they're ever going to follow me if I go in there? And you say, I am sent you. The most important, powerful thing in the universe. I am sent you. Beingness, So that's a great way to end. It's also a great way for you to start what you're doing. So thank you so much again. I love having these conversations with you, and we'll see you again next week.